I was a typical young kid running around playing games with my brother and being told, you know, Mummy's on the phone, Mummy's on the phone. It's like, right, okay, really want to play, really want to play. And it was her speaking from Paris, how differently that conversation would have panned out if I had even the slightest inkling that you know, that her life was going to be taken that night. I have to live with that for the rest of my life, knowing that I was that 12-year-old boy wanting to get off the phone and wanting to go run around and play games rather than speak to my mum.
The next morning, Harry regretted his decision when his dad gave him some devastating news.
Prince Harry actually asked his father, is it true that Mummy's dead? The children couldn't understand why everything was as normal, except that a couple of hours before they'd been told that their mother had died.
Disbelief, refused to accept it. At that point, I was still, I wasn't there. I was still in shock.
Many people believe that the royal family was treating Diana just as they had done when she was alive.
They're the most cold people on this earth.
Harry's mom thought she'd found her fairy tale love when she met Prince Charles.
Can you find the words to sum up how you feel today, both of you? Just delighted and happy. And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
But she had married into a nightmare.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Camilla was revealed as Charles's mistress.
Following her messy divorce, Diana was seen as a great danger to the royal family. Charles and the Queen cut her adrift.
They see me as a threat of some kind, and I'm here to do good. I'm not a destructive person.
Diana had gotten so focused on trying to protect her sons that she couldn't protect herself.
And she was so fed up of being chased by guys on motorbikes and in cars that she stopped the car down a side street and went running up to these guys and just shouted and screamed at them while they took photographs of her. It was very hard for William and I, knowing that there was absolutely nothing that we could do. And just thought, you know, is this supposed to be the way that it's going to be for the rest of our life?
The whole world was heartbroken by Diana's death, including her best friend, Elton John.
Both of those boys are very special to me because of their mother. My heart sank when I saw those 2 boys walking behind the coffin. I thought that was the hardest thing. I can't imagine at that young age having to walk in the public following your mother's coffin.
The royals put their traditions over Harry's grief.
Both William and Harry didn't want to walk.
When is the right time for them to put on their prince hats and carry out duties to mourn not just their mother, but the Princess of Wales in a very public audience? Looking at us then, we must have been in just this state of shock. When the shutters came down and I refused to let myself get sad about the fact that my mother had died, there were certain things that was like someone firing an arrow straight into that barrier. Elton John's song was incredibly emotional. That was part of this whole trigger system which nearly brought me to the point of crying.
His mom was the one person who had always put him first.
It was that love that even if she was on the other side of a room, that you, as a son, you could feel it. To myself and William, she was just the best mother ever. She would just engulf you and squeeze you as tight as possible, and there was no escape. You were there, and you were there for as long as she wanted it to hold you. It's safely say that losing my mum at the age of 12, and therefore shutting down all of my emotions, has had a quite serious effect.
Harry's anger and grief built up for years, until the night he exploded.
In a fit of temper, Harry hit a photographer outside a London nightclub.
Every single time I hear a click, every single time I see a flash, it takes me straight back. It's the worst reminder of her life as opposed to the best.
I think he could have had a lot more guidance, especially from his father. He has veered off the rails because he hasn't had the father figure there all the time when he's needed him.
Charles scarcely knows what to do about his younger son's behaviour. There have been rumours of heated rows and angry telephone calls.
Family members have said, just play the game and your life will be easier. But I've got a hell of a lot of my mum in me.
Diana had never been one to follow the rules either.
Diana burst through the monarchy like a sort of blazing comet.
I remember when I used to sit on hospital beds and hold people's hands, people used to be sort of shocked because they said they'd never seen this before. And to me, it was quite a normal thing to do. And I'm here to do good.
It was that love that even if she was on the other side of a room, you could feel it.
She used her power to break down the walls that the monarchy had built to protect itself.
The best lesson that I learned from her is be yourself.
their father believes that they will need one quality above all.
Good manners, which I think a lot of people have forgotten.
Charles was going to do whatever it took to stop his son from rebelling like Diana had.
Aged 20, his father handed him over to the Sandhurst Military Academy. The regime here is unforgiving.
Many of the cadets who turn up have been used to working for 4 hours a day and sleeping for 20, and our aim is generally to reverse that cycle.
But Charles didn't know Harry like Diana had.
Harry's always been interested in the military. That's what Diana is explaining to me. Harry will be fine because he's always loved the military.
It's very easy to completely forget about who I am when I'm in the army. I am one of the guys.
But when he was deployed to the front line, Harry threw himself into serving his fellow soldiers.
If they said, no, you can't go front line, the last thing I want to do is have my soldiers sent away. And for me to be held back home thinking, well, what about David? What about Derek?
But Harry was soon pulled away from the men he was trying to save.
I'd done everything I could to get out there, literally being plucked out of my team. I'm an officer, I'm leaving my soldiers, and it's not my own decision. I was broken.
But what Harry saw on the plane back to England changed everything.
And while I'm sitting there, I look through the curtain in the front, and there's 3 of our lads wrapped up in plastic, missing limbs. And I suddenly thought to myself, people don't get to see this.
Harry realized to truly be like his mom, he had to stop lashing out and start fighting for others.
My mum clearly taught me a certain set of values, of which I will always try and uphold.
The now 31-year-old royal dedicating himself to supporting wounded warriors and his mother's legacy.
These people are role models, and they need to be celebrated more amongst society.
But when he fell for an outsider, Meghan Markle, all the pain he thought he'd left behind came rushing back.
His great fear now that his wife is subject to the same pressures as his mother was.
All of a sudden, all of this grief that I'd never processed started to come to the forefront. I really regret not ever talking about it. Yeah, for the first 28 years of my life, never talked about it. I knew that if I didn't do the therapy and fix myself, that I was going to lose this woman who I could see spending the rest of my life with.
And when Harry became a new dad, he was desperate to protect his son. So he reached out to Charles one last time.
Meghan Markle and baby Archie, favorite targets of ruthless media. What will the royal family do?
What I was seeing was history repeating itself. My father, he stopped taking my calls. I feel really let down, and Archie's his grandson.
And when Charles didn't step up, Harry had only one choice to help Archie.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just announced that they are, quote, stepping back from their senior roles in the royal family.
She now appears to be trying to get rid of Harry from his family. My issue with Harry is he's so weak over all this.
There really was no other option. This is so much bigger than just us. I will always protect my family, and now I have a family to protect.
I've got my baby and I've got my husband, and they're the best.
I wanted to say the right thing, and I was really nervous that I wouldn't, or that it would get picked apart, and I realized the only wrong thing to say is to say nothing. We are seeing people stand in solidarity, we are seeing communities come together and to uplift.
At the end of the day, I'm really just proud of who I am and where I come from.
I am here with you as a mother, as a wife, as a woman of color, and as your sister.
Trust that the woman I chose as my wife upholds the same values as I do. She's the same woman I fell in love with.
Always remember to put others' needs above your own fears.
It isn't enough to simply talk about equality. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to simply believe in it. One must work at it. Let us work at it together, starting now.
We had in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's